Hello, everybody. I am Ron Miscavige, and this is Life After Scientology, brought to you today by Wing It Productions. In other words, I'm broadcasting from home because my producer, didn't feel comfortable going out with the coronavirus going on. And listen, I don't blame him. So I rigged it up so we can do this from my home because I wanted to get back in communication with everybody. And here I am. So I got Jeffrey Augustine on today, who I call probably one of the best investigative reporters I've ever met. But we have an actual bizarre subject to bring up today. When I say bizarre, it's actually like Dr. Bizarro on steroids. This is some stuff that somebody has to be slightly off of dead center to do something like this. In other words, to do this, and the position that this person is in, which is a little bit of a high-profile person with the group, you have to be playing with solitaire with the deck of 51 cards and thinking somehow you're going to win. Anyway, a little business out of the way before we get started. If you want to become a Patreon, I'd appreciate it very much. So at the end of this video, you can go on and do what you can to help support this program. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe and share this with other people. So there's my commercial. So good morning, Jeffrey. And here we go.
Hey, Ron, how are you?
I'm okay, man. But I'll tell you something. This stuff that went down is beyond my ken, as they would say. My ken meaning my wisdom. So let's just get into it. And just of all, who is Grant Cardone?
Okay, Grant Cardone is a Scientologist. He's an OT8. He's reached the highest level you can reach in Scientology. Excuse me. And Grant's probably been in Scientology since around 2002. For a long time, he was a sales trainer. He did sales and motivational training and to people who sold automobiles. Then he invested money in real estate, primarily B and C level apartment units, complexes, multifamily apartment complexes. So long story short, he's raised the estimates between $200 and $300 million, probably closer to 300 million from investors to put down on apartment buildings, and he owes the banks $1 billion in debt. So here's what happened. Grant went to Clearwater, Florida, to Scientology's flagland base, and he was on a 21-day quarantine. He got locked up. His wife is in Miami, right? So Grant made this series of what I call quarantine in Clearwater videos that are really strange. He's taken them off of YouTube, and he said one thing, Ron. He said that he owed the banks $1 billion, that he borrowed money, interest only for 5 years. So 10-year notes, interest only for 5 years, and then the notes balloon at month 61, right?
Right.
You follow this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So I have a post up on my blog, the Scientology Money Project. Here's what happens if you borrow $1 billion. And it's to 4 different lenders, but I just ran it as $1 billion, right? If you and I borrowed $1 billion interest only, we would pay $3.15 million a month, which is cheap to borrow $1 billion for 5 years. But at month 21, the payment balloons to $19 million a month.
Whoa.
So that exceeds Grant's rental income, I estimated, on his 7,722 apartment units. So he has to keep money coming in from investors, and he promises investors 6% return. So if you invest $100,000 with him, you get $6,000 a year, right?
Right.
Better than bank interest, but not exceptional. I think anyone who's a good entrepreneur can make more than 6%. But people who don't know how to invest or don't want to do the work, 6%, right? And Grant said it was a safe investment because people need a place to live. Now, That was for qualified investors, people whose net worth is, over $1 million or 5 million, I forget the number, and they can afford to lose the money. But then Grant started raising money among unqualified investors, what are called Regulation A. So that's just crowdsourcing. It's a law passed under Obama, and they get 4.5% interest, according to sources. So anyway, what Grant Cardone did. So he's the CEO of Cardone Capital that owns 7,722 apartment buildings, right?
Right.
Now, a CEO has a fiduciary duty to his shareholders, his or her shareholders, okay?
Yeah.
It's a serious position when you're dealing with several $100 million people have invested with you, when you owe your bankers $1 billion. This is a very serious job. You don't fuck around.
Right.
So what does Grant do? He makes this video and on his Instagram account, and he basically says that he's going bankrupt. He said the rumors of my bankruptcy are true. I'm losing the apartments. They're going back to the bank. I'm losing the jet, and I need an attorney to keep me out of prison.
Right. I saw that.
So yeah. So people, people tend to take the word of a CEO at face value because they're fiduciary, they're the chief executive officer of corporations.
Right.
These kind of statements you take seriously. So Grant takes down the video. The next day he says, "Ha, all you fools who believe that. I knew the haters would, but the rest of you didn't believe in me." So he said it was a PR stunt designed to get above all the noise created by the pandemic.
Jeez.
This is a what the fuck moment. I mean, seriously, 140,000 people at that point had died. Tens of millions of people are unemployed and facing bankruptcy. The food banks can't supply and Grant says, "Oh, I have to get above all the noise to get attention for myself." And then he laughs at people. "You believed I was going bankrupt?" Well, yeah, Grant, because you're a CEO. Because a CEO would never make that kind of asinine statement, that kind of 14-year-old boy on the internet. Like, this is probably in violation of Securities and Exchange Commission rules. I think I'm checking the codes of a call into a pretty high-powered official. Okay, so now he's trying to do damage control after he got rightfully excoriated on the internet. And
what would he do for damage control? How do you handle that?
Well, he has a few of his friends doing puff piece interviews where he's trying to downplay it, as it was just like he's trying to downplay it. Okay.
Yeah.
Where it was an extraordinary thing. If Sir Richard Branson right now, CEO of Virgin Airlines, is trying to get a bailout, right?
Yeah.
Now he's getting a lot of opposition because of his great personal wealth, and he could fund this. He doesn't need taxpayers in the United Kingdom to do so. And I like Sir Richard Branson. He's also getting pushback because some people think he left England to avoid taxes, right?
Yeah.
But he's a very responsible CEO. He's taking the criticism. And, he's appealing to help me save my airline and my employees, right?
Yeah.
So even though he's getting critic, he's not calling anyone haters, idiots, fools. Sir Richard Branson didn't make a jackass video saying, "Oh, I'm going bankrupt, my airline, Virgin, is going, back to the banks." So, you take a Disney CEO, Bob Iger, you just go down the list of responsible CEOs. Carly Fiorina when she was with Hewlett Packard, and on down. CEOs don't do this. It's never been done. You don't go on and say to your company that I'm going bankrupt. So Grant was basically tricking his investors into thinking they had lost all their investments. Can you imagine it, Ron? You gave Grant $100,000, and he's saying, "Oh, I'm bankrupt," which means you're bankrupt. You're going to lose everything, right?
Wait a minute. I missed that first part. What'd you say?
Okay, Grant has 3,200 investors, right? So when he made this video as a joke, his investors could have been fooled into thinking, and many were fooled into thinking, "Oh my God, I lost my investment."
Right.
So I'm out of a job. I depended upon that monthly check from Grant. I mean, I'm surprised no one committed suicide over it. It was highly irresponsible. And he'd already laid off 44% of his workforce. Gave him 10 days of pay and got rid of them. Made a video that they were all a liability. He wouldn't rehire. And then he made a video where he said, I'm keeping the jet, you know, his $50 million jet he brags about all the time. So his erratic and bizarre behavior, and in this I'm going bankrupt video, he shows up with a haircut. You know, he's like his hair is buzzed.
Yeah.
And he tries to say he had coronavirus, and he may have. I don't know his medical records. But just the erratic behavior while he was, you know, it's of concern because if you're invested with someone, you expect a CEO of a large corporation to be mentally and emotionally stable.
No kidding.
Now he's of course facing serious problems with some percentage of his tenants not being able to pay rent. I don't blame him for having anxiety. Anyone who owns real estate.
Yeah.
Ben Malla, who's a Clearwater, Florida state tycoon, about 250 million in holdings there in Tampa. He said in a recent social media interview, Ben Malla said, if you own real estate, you're screwed, he emphasized. Because through spring break, he was supposed to bring in $6 million annually and all that money's gone, right?
Yeah.
I understand the anxiety if you're holding real estate and your tenants can't pay. And
exactly.
you owe millions of dollars. Grant quit paying dividends to his investors. Yeah, he paid them monthly dividends, but he suspended them for 3 months, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Grant Cardone said that he pays $2 million a month in distributions or dividends, if you want to call them that, right?
Yeah.
And he says he takes 800,000 of that in his pocket. So I don't know how he gets that $800,000. That's a 60-40 split, right?
Wow.
Maybe he invested his money that way. Maybe it's part of a sweetheart deal because when he sells a building, he gets 35% of the profit on the back end. So really, here's the thing. Grant Cardone, after you subtract out his 800,000, is paying 1.2 million a month in dividends, right?
Yeah.
Now that breaks down to $300,000 a week. So
right.
My inference, my opinion, based on that is if Grant is this multi-gazillionaire, you know, he has all this cash flow pouring in, he should be able to come up with $1.2 million a month. If his margins, if his margins are that thin that he can't pay out suspend his own distribution, if he can't pay out 1.2 million a month, that suggests to me he's razor thin. Because, if you had 20 million a month that you had to pay out, that's one thing. But 1.2 million a month when you have cash flow coming in from multiple sources, he claims, it's just strange. And it's also highly offensive to call people haters who are just merely critics of your work. And well, it's just his easy way of brushing off his critics. Who people who say, like, I wouldn't invest in apartments because it's a 10-year, it's illiquid, you can't get your money out, you can't withdraw it. Ron, if I buy 100 shares of Amazon or 1,000 shares of Google, I can buy it one day and sell it the next, right?
Exactly.
That's liquidity.
Yeah.
And if I invest with Cardone Capital, which I haven't, it's locked up for 7 to 10 years. I can't withdraw it. So even if you lost your job, you can't withdraw the money.
Right.
So his investors rely on him, and they invested based on statements he made that their investments were reasonably safe. Now, no one could foresee the pandemic, right?
Yeah, of course.
So no one can foresee that. Grant could not foresee it. But a CEO is judged by his or her behavior in crisis. President Trump's being judged that way. all world leaders are being judged, all the governors of the states in the US, right?
Right.
They're being judged by their behavior and conduct in a crisis, in a severe crisis that we haven't had since 1918. So for a CEO to make false and misleading statements knowingly about being bankrupt and to call it a joke or a PR stunt, in the world of finance, that was looked at very harshly. But emotionally, you also wonder, here's someone who's supposed to be a Scientology OT, who's reached the top of Scientology's bridge to total freedom, supposed to be at cause over matter, energy, space, and time, and he's not holding it together.
Let me tell you something. If David Miscavige came on the internet today and said, hey guys, I'm stepping down, I'm getting sued, and they have me, I have to go to court. It looks like I'm going to lose all of my control over the Church of Scientology. So I'm sorry about this, but I'm sure they're going to vote somebody in who'll be able to take over. But right now, I don't know who it is. If anybody out there knows a good attorney, I'd appreciate it. And then the next day he come on and says, I was only joking. What could you possibly think about him? What could you possibly think that would have anything to mitigate what he just did? You'd have to say the guy's nuts.
Yeah, you'd have to say he's insane. And Ron, that's a great example. Okay, so let me ask you this, Ron. The leader of the Scientology religion, David Miscavige, gets a report that Grant put this out, right? Because someone's going to write a knowledge report on Grant. Probably multiple Scientologists who've invested with him are going to write knowledge reports, correct?
Well, not only that, but you have OSA, who would have watched this, and I'm sure they reported up to David. Flat out, there's not a question about it. As soon as that video is over, they would say, send a report. Dear sir, here's what Grant Cardone did. And
okay, well, the first thing, the OSA, or the Scientology's Office of Special Affairs, and you're the father of David Miscavige, the leader of the Scientology religion. So you're in a position to know when Grant put that out and the Office of Special Affairs saw it, which is Scientology's intelligence bureau, they must have assumed it was correct as well. They weren't in on the joke.
Right.
So they immediately contact David Miscavige. What's the situation inside the church when they think Grant's going broke? And then what happens when they find out he said it was a joke? What happens inside the church? What did Grant Cardone do wrong?
I would say immediately he's assigned the condition of confusion. That would be the proper condition to assign this guy.
No, what does that mean?
Well, that means that you don't know where the fuck you are.
Yeah.
So many words. In other words, treason is one thing, betrayal after trust. But if you don't even know that you betrayed someone after trust, your mind would be in a condition of not being able to even have your hand on the bottom rung of the ladder. You're floundering around, and you'd have to do that condition, which has a lot to do with orienting the person into his present time environment, so that he then, once he achieves that state where he knows where he is and he has some inkling of who he is, now he would look at that condition of treason and start applying it from there on up. This is a serious offense as far as I'm concerned. Not just because they did it as a bizarre type of joke. It's not even a joke to me. But because he represents a class of person who has achieved the highest state of spiritual awareness available in Church of Scientology. And to do that, he's like a joker. He's like a clown. He's like a pitchman in a carnival or something.
Yeah, it's on one level, it's conduct unbecoming an OT8. And one would think that the Religious Technology Center would revoke his status as an OT8, revoke his OT certs, make him start the bridge over. That could happen.
It could do.
But given my corporate background, decades in corporate, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, a CEO at an event might make a joke about his bad golf game or how things didn't go right on her flight out or something,
Right.
Okay, so just the usual conversational jokes, right?
Yeah.
But they're always politically correct jokes, right?
Of course they are.
Not going to offend anyone. It's going to be something amusing. You might make a joke about, the vice president of finance or something. But to say that you've gone bankrupt and you might be going to prison, unheard of. It is the conduct of a clown. Now, his wife, Elena Cardone, tried to do a damage control video. And this, in my opinion, shows how out of touch they are. She said that before the crisis of the pandemic hit, that Grant buys Patek watches, very expensive watches, the Pateks. But that's, anyway, he buys expensive watches, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You can spend 65,000, 150,000, 250,000, So his watch guy, Elena said, gave her a 10-carat diamond ring to just try out and see if she liked it, right?
Yeah.
And Elena said that when the crisis hit and they had to lay off, 44% of their workforce, and they were going to have to do some belt tightening and go into, economizing.
Yeah.
Without a question, she gave up the 10-carat diamond ring.
Oh my God, isn't that very humanitarian of her?
And
what the fuck are you talking about? This is goofy. This is Monty Python stuff.
That don't do that on social media, Elena. Just like Grant, what Grant violated as a corporate guy, I'll tell you what Grant violated. You never discuss internal corporate business with outsiders. It's corporate secrets, right?
Yeah, of course.
So when I first heard Grant saying, I do 10-year loans with banks, 5-year interest only, I thought, no, you would never give away corporate strategy like that. You would never discuss how you do business.
Right.
You would never discuss your number of investors. You would never give your competition anything. Okay?
Yeah, of course.
And you would never have after you laid off 80 people and gave them 10 days of pay, right? And then later on called them liabilities in a video, you would never have your wife talk about how, well, we're keeping the $50 million jet because that's not liability, but I gave up my 10-carat diamond ring. It's like, you remember the old comedy Gilligan's Island?
What's it called?
You remember the old comedy on television called Gilligan's Island?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Okay, well, you remember Thurston Howell and Lovey, his wife?
Yeah.
Remember Thurston Howell?
Yeah.
Okay, so on this thing, we're dating ourselves. But basically, Thurston Howell was a clueless, out of touch rich guy, right?
Yeah.
And clownish. And Grant is not even close to Thurston Howell because he's more tragic in one dimension and pathetic in another. And I understand the seriousness of the crisis and him wanting to do things, but he just crossed a line you don't cross, right?
Yeah, of course.
So and then I posted this on my blog, and one of Grant's supporters posted a comment saying, I can't believe you fell for it. And I said, well, you tend to take the word of a CEO at face value, but now that we know Grant Cardone's capable of lying and pulling these sort of clown stuff, we'll never believe him again. So he shredded
in a way, you could say he dead agented himself. People will never believe him or take him at face value again. That is, if a person has any sense.
Yeah.
But there are people who will believe anything after they've been fooled 100 times. You know that, and I know that.
Yeah.
And I guess as far as he's concerned, he feels that's the way all people are. That's not true. Many, if not most people, have the good sense of where they are, what they're doing, what's happening. And when someone like that says, and you're an investor and you have 100 G's plopped down to get some income every month, and you hear somebody say, you say, whoa, What the hell's going to happen to my money? The next day he says, I was kidding. Hey, hold it. What am I dealing with here?
Yeah.
What am I dealing with?
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing. Even even if it was your word is your bond, right?
Yeah.
And a person is only as good as their word, and so this is something Grant can't take back. He can't go back in time.
Yeah.
But like I said, in terms of Scientology, would I be correct in saying he would probably be hauled in for an ethics interview about what went on?
Would you be correct? Are you kidding me?
I'm asking.
There's not a question about it.
Well,
There's not a question about it. This is outrageous behavior.
Okay, so when Grant was pulled in for an ethics interview, a sec check, what kind of questions would he be asked?
That I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
But one of them would probably be, are you trying to sabotage David Miscavige? Are you trying to bring hate and disrepute upon the Church of Scientology? In other words, those questions would have to do with, there's an underlying purpose he has that he's not telling anybody, and they want to get at it. Because if he was a true blue OT8, he would have never done anything like this. So there's something within his mental and spiritual framework that has an inkling to destroy something about Scientology or someone in Scientology. Does that make sense?
Yeah. In fact, you make an excellent point, because the Church of Scientology, when one is a Scientologist, they have a duty, as does the member of any church, right?
Yeah.
To protect the reputation of the church's leaders and the church itself.
Right.
So, for example, if Mitt Romney is a very prominent Mormon and a U.S. senator and a wealthy man in his own right, if he made this kind of joke saying he was going bankrupt and was going to prison, the first presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would call Mitt Romney in to say, what the hell did you just do?
Yeah.
That's not conduct becoming a Mormon, especially a prominent Mormon. You've reflected discredit upon yourself, your family, and our church, and you're going to do penance. So Mitt Romney would never do that. So they would say, Grant, you've reflected discredit upon the Church of Scientology and its leader, David Miscavige, by your behavior and conduct. You're not expected to conduct yourself like that. And Ron, I would say when Tom Cruise had his moment on Oprah's show when he was jumping over the sofa, you remember that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. That was crazy, but that affected, that had fallout. Sumner Redstone fired Tom Cruise from the Paramount lot, fired him.
Yeah.
And said, because you've cost us at least $100 million in income, and we will not keep a person who effectuates creative suicide and costs the studio $100 million.
Right.
If Grant Cardone didn't own his own company, if this happened and he had a board of directors, he would be fired. He would have been terminated immediately from any corporation in the world would have terminated him immediately, fired him and said, you're out of here.
You're right.
And we'll pack your stuff in your office in a box and mail it to your house. But because Grant owns his company and can't be fired, he can't be terminated, but his employees, those who work for him, have to be shaking their head. It had to undermine their confidence.
Absolutely.
So I would say watch the video. Go on and Google on YouTube Grant Cardone Bankruptcy and watch the video. Decide for yourself. And then watch the next day video where he mocks people for believing it. So that's what happened.
And let me tell you something. That in itself, making another person wrong for trusting you, that's not easy to get over for the person who was the brunt of that remark. You know that?
No, not at all. To say someone you were stupid or you were a fool for a very bad joke I pulled at a time of serious global crisis.
Yeah.
It speaks to his lack of character, his lack of judgment, and the ability of people, should any future investors who are thinking about investing money invest with him,
Yeah.
Given that kind of conduct, myself personally, no. If I were contemplating, and I wouldn't invest with him anyway, because I don't like apartments.
Right.
So, and I've said I hope his company doesn't go bankrupt because his investors will lose their money, and they're good, decent, hardworking people.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah,
they want, yeah. So
well,
that's,
I'll tell you,
that's short on.
the fallout on it is on the Church of Scientology, as far as I'm concerned, because for a person to spend the time and the effort and the money and the hard work in moving up that bridge to OT8, which is the top of the bridge, and to behave in this way is definitely not good for the church.
No, and Ron, and that's what I want people to see, the side of Grant Cardone, Scientologist.
Yeah.
And that within the Church of Scientology, there are consequences for him doing this.
Absolutely.
And that it's something he shouldn't have done. And it's something that came to the attention of the leader of the church, David Miscavige. So just on a personal basis, just opinion only, what do you think David Miscavige's opinion would be of this event? Of Grant saying he was bankrupt, then joking and laughing and taking it back? Would he be furious?
I would say, initially, he would say, I cannot believe that this guy did this. I cannot believe it. I don't know what he would think after that, but I don't think it would be too pleasant toward Grant Cardone.
No, it wouldn't be. So, so that's it. You know, we're living in very stressful times.
Yeah.
And Grant Cardone did something highly irresponsible and reckless. He made false and misleading statements that added to the stress of people who were already stressed. Many of whom are unemployed, many of whom can't pay their rent.
Yeah.
And then his wife made the video about how she had to give up her 10-carat diamond ring.
Oh, I really pity her on that.
Well,
I really feel sorry that she actually had to give up that ring. That cuts me to the chase, you know.
You know, Ron, it's like Scientology. Some of this stuff you can't make this up.
No.
You go from the squirrel busters to Tom Cruise jumping on a sofa to just all the crazy stuff that comes out of Scientology. Okay, when it's self-contained in the Scientology bubble, okay, that's one thing, right?
Right.
But when it actually goes out into the real world where you have investors, you owe your lenders $1 billion, it's not okay.
I know, buddy.
And I could see why David Miscavige would not be amused. L. Ron Hubbard actually wrote a policy on jokers and degraders.
I remember that.
And in the Church of Scientology, one of the first things it does is it rips the humor from you.
Right.
You're not allowed to engage in joking and degrading. Now, what Grant did exceeded even joking and degrading. It was a violation of all kinds of things in Scientology. So, so I would just, that's why I want to do the video with you to say, what the hell was he thinking of? I don't know.
If you could tell me what he was thinking, you could tell me what my cat Frank is thinking. Even I can't do that. As much as I love him, I still am not able to read his mind.
No, and that's why people are shaking their heads over Grant, and because he's such a big social media influencer.
Yeah, and, I mean he's high profile.
Yeah,
he's high profile. Well, I'll tell you, I think you made your point, Jeffrey, and
yep.
I'm glad we had this interview and to bring this out to more people. And I'm glad to be back broadcasting, and I'm really very happy you took the time to go on this with me. Okay.
Oh, always a pleasure to talk to you, Ron. You're looking good. Stay handsome, my friend.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm back broadcasting from home, and please tune into my other videos. The one especially I'd like you to see you tune into is called Home Workouts for Veterans or Anybody. This is something I firmly believe would help you if you were to try this apparatus out and start exercising. Because if you do it, you're going to look better, feel better, be healthier, be stronger, and it's going to help your immune system. And at a time like this, that doesn't hurt. And
No.
that's a good set of videos to watch. And then you can watch for relaxation, story time. And another one I give is life lessons. And I may do a life lesson on something similar to this. But meanwhile, please tune into my other ones, and you're going to see more of me, because now that I'm able to do this from home, I'm back into action again. Yeah. And Jeffrey, I got to thank you for going over there. You go get.
Okay.
He's getting ready to go out.
Yeah, remember to stay safe.
Let me show you. There you go.
There you go. Okay, well,
that's
stay
right.
safe, my friends out there.
As a matter of fact, your wife sent me that.
Yeah.
So it's right here at the table. So when I go out for a walk, I got that on. You know, I practice these rules. They're practical, you know. Social distancing. Yeah.
We love you guys.
Anyway, thanks again, Jeffrey, and I'll see you on the next one. So I am Ron Miscavige, and this is Life After Scientology. I'll see you on the next episode.